What better way to end the season than with an Inside the Zone Championship edition here on Wayne.com. Blake Sebring with us as always. And Blake, the President's Cup last Monday night was being raised at the Coliseum. How surprised are you that this is the way the season ended? Because when we talked earlier in the year, this was a team we didn't know the identity, they didn't have the consistency, but when playoff time came again, they flipped the switch again.
Well, they had the leadership. I mean, anytime you've got Colin and Brett Smith and Brett Henley and Kaylee Schrock and Leo Thomas and, you know, guys like that and Nick Boucher, I mean, I just think it's amazing what Colin and Nick did considering they were injured. I mean, for them to play that whole last series basically with stuff that during the season would have knocked them out for 3 weeks at the very least was pretty amazing.
Expound on those injuries.
Colin got nailed by a Mike Vasquez slap shot in practice before Game 3, and he didn't think he was going to play. I mean, and Nick shouldn't have played. Nick got hurt before Game 7, the morning before Game 7 against Missouri. He had an MCL problem with his knee, and he got shot up, and otherwise he wouldn't have played. They would have just gone right to surgery during the regular season and gotten it cleaned up and gotten him ready. But he played the whole rest of the way with nobody knew. I mean, you could kind of tell from watching him that something wasn't right, but you couldn't tell what.
And Chalk leading his line. That line was absolute dynamite throughout the entire postseason. Mike Vasquez, the Justin Hodgman of the 2012 season.
Sylvain Couturier from...
Yeah, see, your comment knowledge is vast. I can't go back that far. He's the Hodgman to me. What kind of addition was he, and what was it about his game that allowed him to fit in so seamlessly, or was that about the players that he was playing with more so than perhaps Mike?
It was a little bit of both. What was cool about Vasquez was that he was the perfect replacement skill-wise for Artem Pachenlov. He was the perfect replacement defensively for Artie, too, because he would give Chris Auger somebody to skate with, but he also gave Colin the freedom to be more creative offensively, because Colin wasn't worried 99% of the time about getting back to cover Artie's man. And so that really allowed them to cycle down low and use their speed and use their creativity. And that was really, really tough for AA defensemen to handle.
The 3 recent titles in the IHL, 1 year without a title in the CHL, then they win another championship. So 4 and 5 years in 2 different leagues. Where does this team rank against the three-peat teams that we saw in the IHL?
I still think the first three-peat team was the best, and I think it's head and shoulders. I mean,
really?
Yeah. You look at, they had Kevin Ryder, who was the IHL goalie of the year, and then you had Nick, who won the playoffs. Those are your 2 goalies. I mean, that's probably the best 1-2 goalie combination the Comets have had in the 25 years that I've been following the team that closely. I mean, and I'm not comparing them AA to AAA, okay? I'm just comparing their statistics and everything else. You look at the depth on that team where the third line was Terry Marchant, Matt Reynolds, and David Huckalo. I mean, that's amazing. Your extra forward was Justin Hodgman. I mean,
it's a pretty good extra guy to have.
Yeah, it's insane. And that's replacing a guy who scored 15 goals during the regular season, too. I mean, you know, everybody on that forward, every forward scored at least 10 goals. All right, and then your defensemen were Sergei Durden, who was an excellent, excellent player. And then it was Jake Pence, who was a rookie that year. And then your other pairings were Kevin Hansen and Brett Henley, both in their prime, both mean as snakes and both just dominating. And then your third pairing was Guy Dupuis and Kevin Bertram. I mean,
not bad.
You know, you think about it. Who are the 3 best? Okay, the 4 best defensive defensemen the Comets have had in the last 10, 15 years. I mean, you got to go Bertram, you got to go Henley, you got to go Hansen, you got to probably go Troy Newmeyer, and you got 3 of the 4 on the same team. And then you got Guy, who's very, very good at that point.
Right.
I mean, there are no weak spots there in that whole lineup. And then you look at who they played. They were tied 2-2 with Muskegon, which was a great team. I mean, they had guys who had won championships in the UHL. They had a championship goaltender. Okay. Then you go down, you're down 3-1 to Port Huron, which had a great team that year. I mean, they had an exceptional team. And they showed it by the next couple of years being right there, too. And then you're down 3-1 to them, and look at how many great games that team won on the road. They didn't go on the road and blow people out. They won gut check, overtime games, just gritty games where things didn't go right for them, and they still found ways to win and eke it out.
The question now is, they found a way to win in the CHL. After 2 seasons, they've got 1 championship, which is pretty good numbers-wise.
Amazing, considering.
Are they going to be in the CHL next year? Because the contract is up. Minor league hockey, as we know in the past years, a lot of leagues have contracted or gone away, and now we're having less leagues, but a more competitive hockey. So where do you see the Comets next year?
I think they're going to be in the ECHL, and that's what we've said since January. If they were going to stay in the CHL, there would have been no reason for them not to have announced it months ago. There's no benefit to them dragging this out unless they're making the move. Because, you know, in the ECHL, they do their schedule. They're doing their schedule already right now. I mean, they announced their schedule significantly earlier than the CHL too. So they're already working on their schedule. So I have believed all along the Comets are going to be in the ECHL, and I still believe that.
Michael Franke saying after the championship, June 1st is the date. Circle that. They'll have a decision by then. Is that when you expect the announcement to be made?
I expect it sooner than that.
Really?
I think there's no purpose to waiting. You know, there's no significance that helps either or to waiting. The planning is already going on. You know, there's just no purpose. So why not get it out of the way, and then you can start moving forward.
What's the benefit of going to the ECHL? It has a little bit of more notoriety, a bigger footprint in certain areas. They're going to get, hopefully, they're going to get some teams that they've played against before in the Michigan area. So
I think there are 2 things. I think there are the rivalries with Kalamazoo, Cincinnati, and Toledo, and the fact that they get to take Evansville with them is another huge factor. And I think the other thing is proximity. You know, this year there were maybe 24 fans at each road playoff game, or some of the road playoff games. That's not Comets hockey. I mean, Comets hockey is 1,000 fans going to Kalamazoo, or, you know, to Muskegon, or to Port Huron, and you can have that again. I think that's a big part of it. I think they believe that the travel cost to the east now will be significantly less than travel costs could be to the west. I think, especially when you look at the playoffs, even if you're going 2-3-2s, that gets expensive. I mean, it really, really does. When you consider the Comets were in Missouri for essentially a week, and in Rapid City for, you know, even though they went the screwy lineup of that series, and, you know, in Wichita, that's hard. I mean, that is expensive. I don't care what hotel you're staying at, what rate you're getting, the gas, the per diem, the paying the guys the extra weeks, the insurance, all that adds up. And when you're not drawing 6,000 fans for the first 4 playoff games, that adds up.